Hello, my name is Brian Dehn. This video is part of my master's project for San Jose State University and my Master's of Music Education. I hope you enjoy it. And if you have any comments or suggestions, I look forward to answering them as we continue to learn this together. My contact information is at the end of this video. I encourage you to read the accompanying paper first and then come to these videos. We have seen Pythagorean tuning, or three-limit just intonation concepts already. It's melodic, linear. We also have the understanding that an interval is a frequency difference from one tone to another. The truth of Pythagoras and just intonation, or nature, it will all tell us that not all intervals by letter name are the same. Now, Matthew's entire book studies this phenomenon. Rameau theorized about it, and Mozart spoke of it and wrote about it. In the previous video, I showed you a fingering chart for a violin from the 17th century. A flat functions differently than G sharp. We must move to the system that best fits with the chords or the composition style as we know them then and now, which is really a just intonation ideal when the third is seen as consonant. Most would concede, for example, that a C major chord is made up of the notes C, E, and then G. But knowing what we know now of naturally occurring overtones, we know that the fifth occurs in nature first. Then the third comes, but only after another octave. I want to show you a simplified version, the lattice that was first theorized and built in the early 1700s by Euler, among some others, of course. This is one of the coolest things I have ever seen. So let's go ahead and start with the middle line, the E flat, and we get all the way up to the E based on fifths, with the C essentially in the center. Now the upper line is simply a major third above and the bottom is a major third below. But we also need to think of them as overtones as we move up or to the right, and undertones if we move down or to the left. Examining notes as overtones or even undertones of C, we can observe two E's by going to the end of that middle line, 4/5 up, or we could choose to go up to the E above. But which to choose? Well, it depends on the other notes involved. Now, this becomes even more relevant when we put in the sense difference that we know from the previous videos. It now looks like this. Now this lattice took both 3 and 5 limit just intonation and placed them on a two-dimensional graphic. If you want to stay in 3 limit, say for a melody or tuning a hexachordal phrase, just pay attention to the middle line. But if you need chords, then simply expand out. So let's look at those E's again. The top E will be flat of the E in equal temperament by 14 cents. But if we view E as a third partial of A, then it is 8 cents sharp of equal temperament. How about the major seconds, C to D? It's either 4 cents sharp of equal temperament, or if we pick the other D, it could be 18 cents flat of equal temperament. Now for this lattice, I've used the tonal center of C here. Now that can change at any point, of course, as we know, but the pattern is the same. If we move down the lattice, just intonation, we need to go up 14 cents. If we move up the lattice, again, just intonation, we have to go down 14 cents. If we move to the right, which is the Pythagorean ideal, we have to go sharp 2 cents. If we go to the left, it's down 2 cents. Our decision as a conductor, a musician, is which E or which D to choose. Now I go into a little bit more of the differences in my paper, but for our purposes, we just need to know that this difference is dependent on a variety of factors, and thus why we must actually make decisions. Now let me make it a tad bit more complicated. The equal tempered pitch. If we start with C and we want to sing a D, re, right? Do we sing the equal tempered D, 200 cents, the 3-limit Pythagorean D that is 4 cents sharper, or the 5-limit just intonation D that is 18 cents lower? We essentially now have 3 pitches to choose from. Again, it depends on context, but this is the nature of why tuning issues happen. By the way, I love exploring these concepts with my advanced ensembles. They have opinions, and trusting them is part of the ensemble process. So I go into how this changes a composition in the accompanying paper, but I will summarize by bringing together Matthew and Duffin's work. They posit that there is no grand modal scheme from the beginning of a piece to the end, or one harmonic concept throughout most repertoire. The beauty of the ideal is that it is constantly changing. It is not major or minor or just a mode. It's about hexachords, which are simply collections of pitches strategically placed to express the text, or even, and there's evidence to show this, fulfill a liturgical function, and frankly, everywhere in between. Donald Brinegar, in his new book, Pitch Perfect, states it quite clearly. When the hexachord mutates, pitches change their functional meaning along with their intonation, plus or minus in sense. The points of mutations are integral to maintaining the flow of the motet and the centricity of the primary hexachord, or primary tetrachord. We saw how to build the one-dimensional versions of our diatonic scale, but let's practice building a two-dimensional lattice. So here we all know our F major scale. Here it is now as a lattice. Here's B flat major in the lattice. Here's D major in the lattice. So now let's bring back the lattice as defined by such theorists and practitioners as Euler and Helmholtz, Matthew, and Brinegar. And it's extremely helpful, insightful, and quite profound. But here are some of the things that we can see with this lattice. We can see major chords, minor chords, diminished chords, augmented chords, even pentatonic scales. So we now know a C major chord looks like this. We know based off the name and visually the chord is based on the C. But what the lattice tells us is that we must tune the E from the C and then tune the G from the C, knowing that we must tune the G 2 cents sharper and the E 14 cents flatter than the piano. But again, the major point to see here is that the note C is the fundamental pitch. What you will not want to do is tune the G from the E or the E from the G. In fact, tune them separately at first. More and more directors are doing the fifth first and then filling in the third. Just please do not yell at the choir for being flat on the third. They just might be right. So an F major 7 on the lattice looks like this. We must not tune the E to the F. We must either tune it up a fifth from A or a third from C. It doesn't actually matter which one you choose, the math is the same. But either way, remember that the E must be 12 cents under the equal tempered E. And this is the beauty of the lattice. Let's look at A minor 7. We can either choose the A or the C from which to base our tuning. Again, this may have melodic or compositional criteria that could influence our decision. I like to look at the tonal center of the piece or the best sounding harmonic progression. Because if we choose the A, the G is 16 cents sharper than the piano. But if we choose the C, it's only 2 cents sharper than the piano. Decisions must be made as they would be in any rehearsal. I think we are now ready to use the lattice in two very beautiful compositions. The first one is Lauridsen's O Magnum Mysterium. So this is one of the greatest pieces of choral repertoire, and we're going to just analyze a few of these chords here. The first one being bar 1, and I'm going to spell it out. We have F sharp, D, E, A, and then G coming later in the bar. And then once we arrange it on the lattice, we see how it's arranged with D as our main note. Let's jump now to bar 5. We have B, D, G, and then the E. And then we mutate it, or we figured out how it fits in the lattice, we base it off of G. In bar 6, we have A, C sharp, E, and D, and then we put it in the lattice. How about bar 34? We have a B, F sharp, C sharp, and D. And here we go, when we put it in the lattice, we see that we have to base the F sharp as the center of that chord. And the D is just the third below. And how about bar 39, which is probably my favorite bar of the piece? F sharp, C sharp, G sharp, and A. Well, the C sharp is the fundamental tone, is the generating pitch, which the A is now an undertone, a fifth up for the G sharp, and a fifth down for the F sharp. And now let's move to Ubi Caritas of Paul Mueller. This is another beautiful piece. Let's look first at bar 6. We have G flat, D flat, E flat, F, another G flat, an A flat, and a B flat. So let's modify that. We see that G flat is our generating tone. Now we have to pick which B flat we want to do. Do we want to do the third up from G flat, or do we want to do the fifth up from E flat? And when I did this with my choir, there was definite disagreements on which B flat they liked better, but we made a decision eventually. In bar 8, we have B flat, D, E flat, and F. We put that on the lattice. We see that B flat is our generating tone. And how about bar 10? G flat, D flat, A flat, B flat, F. Put that on the lattice. We see that G flat is our generating tone. The B flat's a third above, the D flat's a fifth above, and then the F, and then you throw the A on. And how about bar 12? We have E flat, A flat, D flat, C, F, and then G. And then once we modify that and bring them over, I actually think the A flat is going to be our generating tone, with the E flat treated as an undertone, the D flat treated as the overtone. With both of these pieces, it's very nice to hear and see how composers are writing, but also how they're tuning and how it best works with other choirs. We hope you've enjoyed this. We'll see you on the next video.